a lot of people just assume that the insurance is going to take care of them. And unfortunately, that's just not a reality. It's a business for them.
You've been through enough. This is Now What? Your guide to recovering after life blindsides you. I'm Jordan Travis, a personal injury attorney here in Colorado. And together we'll cut through the confusion, expose the insurance games, and let you get the clarity you deserve.
This is episode 2 of the Now What podcast with Jordan Travis. And today I have on a special guest, my wife, Mackenzie Travis.
Thanks.
Mackenzie, will you tell the audience and tell everyone kind of how you got involved, a little bit, give yourself a little bit of background information just so we can know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Mackenzie Anderson Travis. I am a legal assistant here at Travis Legal Offices. I started in 2022 when I was finishing up my graduate degree from the University of Northern Colorado. I actually got my graduate degree in sports psychology, which is not what we do here. But I started working at Travis Legal Offices because you guys kind of needed the help and I just needed a little more flexibility with my schedule at the time. And so that really allowed me to do that. And I've stuck around ever since because, and we'll get into it more today on this podcast, but what we do is what I wanted to do my whole life, which is help other people. And so when I started working here, I didn't think that that's what the law firm did. And then after a couple months, I realized that is what it does. And I've been here ever since.
Nice. And is the law anything you ever thought you would work in or anything like that? Or is this?
No, I'm a very non-confrontational person, which I feel like, especially like the stigma of lawyers and what you see on TV and everything like that is lawyers are very aggressive and which they are, but there's a time and a place for that aggression, not just like all the time, like what you see in the media. And I'm a very introverted person. So I have definitely been pushed outside of my comfort zone working here, but it's been great.
Great. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the biggest lie about hiring a lawyer, especially for the personal injury context. It's more what we're going to focus on are the myths that are associated with it. So the beliefs that a lot of people have about hiring a lawyer or the personal injury process in general. So we'll cover a few of those. The most common ones, anytime I meet with a client, I hear oftentimes several of these that in one way or another are often just misplaced, either fears or anxieties, or frankly, they're beliefs that are instilled upon people from insurance companies themselves and through ads that they've done over the years. So it doesn't matter, but either way, we'll start off talking about some of the more basic myths, and then we'll go into some of the more specific ones. But ones that a lot of people have is kind of the goal of today's focus, and stuff I hear from clients all the time when we meet them that we just kind of want to dispel and acknowledge that it does exist, these beliefs, but they're not something that should be unsurmountable or discourage you from at least seeking legal advice on your case. So,
and by even just seeking legal advice, like our office is always available for you to even just call. We give out free consultations. We don't charge for them. Even if you just have a simple question, we'll let you know whether or not, like, one, we'll take the case. We can refer you out to somebody else a lot of the times who can help you if we can't help you.
For example, we've had a case where a seatbelt failed. It was just manufactured incorrectly, and that caused our client in a car accident to actually die. And the car accident side of things, we knew how to handle and everything, but the engineering aspect of the seatbelt and all of that type of stuff, that's a product liability case, and it's something we co-counseled and referred out. So those are the type of situations where you want to make sure whatever attorney, whatever advice you need is being sought by or being given to you by someone who knows what they're talking about and it's their area of practice and expertise.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into this.
Okay, so the first main myth that we hear about a lot of the times is people who essentially think they don't need a lawyer because the insurance is going to take care of them, whether it's your own insurance or, someone who hit you, the at-fault party's insurance. A lot of people just assume that the insurance is going to take care of them. And unfortunately, that's just not a reality. It's a business for them. There's a whole variety of different reasons that they handle cases the way they do, but ultimately, the best way I can describe this is that every insurance company who's been doing this for a number of years, they have audited, they have reviewed, they have diagnosed, they've consulted, however you want to phrase it, every aspect of a claim from start to finish and the processes involved in them and how they can save money on every step of the way. They will try it or have tried it already. Just understand that going into it, the insurance company's goal is not necessarily to take care of it. It's basically to save themselves money. So that's one of the things we hear though all the time is I don't need a lawyer. The insurance is going to take care of it.
Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is another aspect of what we do is called bad faith and insurance claims. And that's where we sue our client's own insurance company because their own insurance company isn't taking care of them like they should be either.
Right. If your insurance company isn't conforming to industry standards, then in those cases, there's a chance that you could file a claim for bad faith. The whole goal of this is just to remember that the insurance company is not really designed to look after you. They're not your friend. The adjuster is not going to take care of you. I mean, bottom line is there are incentives on their side. Some adjusters and some insurance companies are incentivized in one way or another to, I would say anyway, underpay claims. For example, let's say they think your claim on their internal systems is worth $10,000. In some insurance companies' cases, if they get you to accept $5,000 instead of the full 10 that they have it set aside for, the adjuster and their supervisors and the management get bonuses on the additional $5,000 that they save the company. So there are incentives involved in this, and there's also delay incentives and everything else involved in this that ultimately will make it so that they're not really looking after you. They're just trying to get their claims moved off their desk in as minimal payout as possible. One of the biggest ways I see this happen is very simple on property damage claims. When someone gets in a car wreck and let's say their car is damaged, either totaled or needs repairs, a lot of times the insurance company will just say, okay, go get your car repaired, and not tell them that they're entitled to a rental car while the vehicle is being repaired. It's called loss of use damages. The insurance company, the adjuster, I promise you, he or she knows that they should be paying for this rental car. But if you don't ask for it, they won't volunteer it to you. So that's one of those things where you have to know the process along the way in order to help represent yourself. And the only way you're going to know the process, frankly, is if you do this every day. Yeah. And they're not going to volunteer that type of stuff for you. Actually, one of your jobs is a lot of times, and this is one thing I hear too, so maybe this is myth number 2, is a lot of times people will think, well, the insurance is going to cover it. And if they're not, they're going to tell me what their limits are or why they're not covering it and that type of thing. And a lot of people just at the very outset of their case just ask them, oh, what are the insurance limits? And the insurance company refuses to disclose those. And one of your jobs in our office is to help us find out what the limits are. So can you just quickly, briefly describe what that process is and why it's so specialized and even in covering what the limits are?
So it's a Colorado statute called 10.3.1117. And there are specific things under that statute in which insurance companies are supposed to provide when you request it through the Division of Insurance. And so we have a way where we know exactly where to send that because you can't just send it to the insurance company. You have to send it to, and I am blanking on the word.
You have to send it through the registered agent.
Thank you, registered agent. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word right now. No, and you can access this by yourself, but it just, even when you set up a claim, you have to know specifically when you set up a claim, like with Progressive, for example, they have Progressive Direct, Progressive Preferred Insurance Company. They have multiple names under their umbrella, like under the umbrella of just Progressive.
Correct.
And so when you request this information through the 10.3.1117, you need to send it specifically to the registered agent for that specific insurance company. And so sometimes, and I don't know if they're doing it on purpose to be tricky or it's just how they have set their things up, but Progressive Preferred, the registered agent may be at a different address and company than Progressive Direct is. And so you have to send it to the specific registered agent. I don't know why that word will not stick in my head. Registered agent and a specific outline of what you are requesting. So the limits, the policy documents to follow it, any umbrellas the at-fault party has, or your own insurance. Sometimes insurance companies don't even fully disclose our clients' own insurance policies to us. And so we have to also send this to our own clients' insurance companies to have them send everything to understand what limits are available to you in relation to this collision. And I guess if you want to go into it a little more, explain what limits are, because some people don't even know necessarily what limits are.
Yeah. And so what a limit is a maximum amount that the insurance company will pay out for that specific type of claim. It's usually outlined in the insurance contract. It'll say, in exchange for this person paying us per month in a certain amount of premiums, we will cover you for X amount. Usually, like in Colorado for bodily injury, the state minimum is $25,000. So it could be higher, but it has to at least be $25,000 in bodily injury limits. And so what that means is basically if someone hits you, as long as they're insured, they have to have at least a minimum of $25,000 for your injury side of your case. But again, insurance companies won't tell you because it can be higher than that. We have cases all the time where people have paid for higher amounts of insurance and they will, without us getting involved, sending it this formal way, as nice as the adjuster is to the person who was handling it beforehand, if you don't ask for it in the right way, they don't disclose it to you properly, or they try to hide how much is out there. They won't tell people. So it's one of those myths that we hear insurance will take care of us. We're just using that as an example of even very simple of finding out how much insurance is out there. They're not going to take care of you for that. You have to know how to do that yourself. Finding out what coverages are available. They will not do that for you. You have to find out yourself. And so that's the biggest myth that we hear about all the time is the insurance is going to take care of me, or one of the biggest myths. Mm-hmm. The next one that I figured we'd talk about today is a myth that my injuries aren't that big of a deal. So we hear that all the time, people coming into the door, whether an accident happened fairly recently or even a while back, but they think their injuries, a lot of our clients are caregivers for their family or something, they're trying to be tough for one reason, or ex-military members or even active military members. One reason or another, they sometimes anyway, minimize or downplay how much their life is impacted from an injury. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you've seen that personally, if you have any either examples you want to talk about or anything along those lines as far as myths about when you've talked to clients, or how we deal with it is a better way. When someone tells us my injuries aren't that bad, how would our office, or how should we approach that, do you think?
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest things that we see most often that is very stigmatized is closed head injuries, like some known as traumatic brain injuries, even down to just, concussions. If you've ever had a concussion, you know that can really impact you for weeks beyond your initial injury. So I think there's a lot of stigma behind closed head injuries, and people just don't want people to say that they're making it up because you can't see it, right? Like to the naked eye, you can't tell that somebody has brain fog, somebody has headaches, somebody has trouble. We have a client who was injured and she couldn't even get her eyes to converge anymore, which means she couldn't see basically what she wanted to look at because her eyes couldn't focus. And so once she hired us, we got to talking to her about it, and she was saying, I'm getting headaches all the time. I'm trying to work. She had to sit in front of a computer and work all day, which was not helping her situation. She was throwing up. She had to take some time off in between what she was doing to just rest and be in a dark room and just try to figure it out. And when she told us that, we were like, well, have you brought this up to your doctor? And she was like, yeah, vaguely, but I'm just trying to get through, which most people are just trying to get to do every day, is just live their life as best they can after something like this has impacted them. And so we suggested she talk to her doctor again, and her doctor got her set up with somebody who could do therapy to fix the issue. And so it's just situations like that where you can't see and you don't know how truly impactful it is on a client until you talk to them.
And it's a lot of things too when they say the injuries aren't that bad. They may not be that bad. Most of our clients and most people who are in car accidents, frankly, they're not paraplegic, they're not brain dead or anything along those lines. But it doesn't mean that you're not having your life impacted just because you're not as hurt as you possibly could be. You're not the most severe. You didn't die or anything like that.
Yeah, and going with that too, even if you do have a closed head injury, sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes it can affect certain parts of your brain that do information processing basically, and your personality can change and you don't even realize it when you're going day to day. I think another thing that's also stigmatized in relation to injuries from collisions is the mental aspect of it and going and seeking counseling for like PTSD, because we do have a lot of clients who, after they've been into a collision, are rightfully so scared to get back into a vehicle, whether they were T-boned, rear-ended, hit head-on, any of the above. It's pretty scary to get back and I don't want to say relearn how to drive, but it's like approaching driving in a completely different way once you've been in a collision.
We'll kind of wrap that thought process up of, I'm not that injured. I don't need a lawyer. A thought process up as you may not think you do or anything like that. And you may not need a lawyer. We're, by all means, if you're totally fine and everything else, but don't just tell yourself you're fine when internally you probably realize you're not, or at least your family members will realize you're not. Before you decide not to pursue an injury claim or not to let a personal injury case go entirely and not pursue insurance and stuff, really ask the people around you and everyone else too. And that's, what our office does. Just make sure that there's nothing you're not seeing in yourself or you're trying to hide yourself, and be honest with yourself, because number one, your family members would want to see you better. Number two, if you are in pain and you're trying to hide it, that makes it hard on the doctors to treat you properly. So having honest conversations with your doctors, that's usually the best way to get better. Oftentimes the only way to get better. So I think that's biggest myth number 2. Biggest myth number 3 that I figured we'd talk about today is the myth that attorneys are expensive. So I hear that all the time. Clients worrying about how to pay for attorneys. A lot of times they hear about these ridiculous hourly rates that attorneys charge, and they're worried about the bills. A lot of times, they're coming in, already worried about the medical bills, already worried about the property bills or the property damage anyway. And then on top of it, you're telling me I got to pay a lawyer and get a lawyer involved. All of a sudden, the money in the case seems very tight. So that is another myth that we encounter all the time. When it comes to attorney's fees, at least for our office and most personal injury attorneys throughout the state, we handle cases on a contingency fee basis, not usually almost ever on a hourly basis. So you don't pay us per hour of work or anything like that. The settlement at the end of the case is how we get paid. We get paid a percentage at the end. That's what the contingency is. It's contingent upon us being successful in your case. So it's essentially, unless we are successful and win your case, you don't owe us anything. Let's say without an attorney involved, the insurance company would offer a certain amount, whether it's $5,000, $10,000, whatever the number is. The client, would have to pay medical bills out of that, but then the rest they could hypothetically keep for themselves 100%, which is great. That's fine. But with an attorney involved who's making sure that you're doing the right things, presenting the evidence in the right way, that type of thing. Let's say we can get the insurance company to go from $5,000 to $10,000 all the way out. I mean, we've had cases where they've, in those similar scenarios, gone to, $120,000, $180,000, whatever the numbers end up being. In those scenarios, by increasing the insurance company's offer in the end of the case enough, we've more than made up for what our fees are, but then the client walks away with more in their pocket. So I guess that's one of the myths, is that our attorneys' offices are going to take my settlement away from me, or take a third or whatever the fees are of my settlement. And I guess the way we look at it is, no, we'll just get you or try to anyway, and this is our goal in every case, do our best to get you a much better settlement overall, that even with our fees included of the 1/3 or whatever it is, you will still walk away with more into your pocket. Mm-hmm. That's the goal in every case.
Another thing that we do that's unique is that we help with property damage, which a lot of personal injury firms don't do. And we do that I don't want to say for free because it's our time, but we don't charge you for it. And we don't take any settlement or any money out of the property damage settlement.
That's correct. Yeah, we don't take any fees out of any property damage settlement, even if we have to, help our clients out with that or be involved in that. It's only on the injury settlement that we take any fees associated with it. Again, that circles or continues to talk about the myth that attorneys will take all the money or take the settlement, and insurance companies love to try to convince people that, especially early on in the case, but before an attorney's involved. If you tell them I'm thinking about getting an attorney, I've heard adjusters do it where they say, well, you don't want to do that because the attorney's going to take all the money. That's just not true. That's just not the way it works. As long as I essentially do my job and the case works out, we should increase the overall settlement by enough that it comes out in the end as a net benefit to everyone.
And another thing that we do is that we will take a case in and we'll open it with our office. and we'll do all of the investigating that we need to necessary to find out limits and other resources and our evaluation, I guess, of what the case potentially is worth. And if we find that a client or a potential client is better off doing it by themselves because we cannot add more to it, we will let them know that right up front. I mean, not up front. I mean, it takes a minute for us to get everything appropriate in to be able to evaluate a case fully, but we're not going to sit here and lie to you for months and months and months and say we can make something out of this. If we can't make something work for you to your benefit of hiring us, then we won't do it.
The next myth that we're going to talk about today is the myth that big law firms always get bigger settlements or they must be better in some way or another. And I don't want to come away people confused. That is not always the case. I mean, there's a lot of situations where big law firms may not be the right fit for your case just because they don't give it the personal attention, and it's a numbers game for them. And it's just, when to you, it could be a significant, or your family, like a significant life-changing event. For them, it's just another case on the docket. Mm-hmm. One of many, many, probably hundreds or thousands that they're dealing with at any one time. There are resources that big law firms have that can, in very certain and specific situations, be useful in cases. But in a lot of those situations, any good small firm that's in one of those very contrived and very specific situations, like one comes to mind if you're going against like an automobile manufacturer or, those product liability cases, again, that I've already brought up on this episode, those type of situations where you need very expensive and extra resources available because you're going after a huge corporation, not just, an insurance company specifically. In those situations, at least what our office does and what most small offices should do, and anyway, is just co-counsel it out with a big firm. You send it over to a big firm. We'll work with them along with you on your case. So both law firms get involved. It doesn't cost the client anything extra along the way. Mm-hmm. The law firm split the fees. So it would, if I would normally get a third, instead I just split my third with the big law firm if we needed to bring them in for whatever reason. But usually in those types of situations, because we have to deconstruct a car, we have to hire all these engineers, whatever situation it is involving that. Outside of those situations, though, which again are small, tiny percentage of cases, there is that myth that big law firms get bigger settlements. And, it's not true. On some of they're basically playing the odds. If they get in, let's say 1,000 cases a month, maybe one of those cases is a big, just based on the case itself. The nature of the case is a potential for a big case. And that's the only one that they're going to spend all this budget on, that they're going to go out there and at the end of the case, market themselves about, they're going to talk all about that 1 out of 1,000 case.
Right. They never talk about the $25,000 ones.
Or how they took care of it. And realistically, it's because they don't, take care of those people.
Right. That's true. They only handle the big.
Yeah, they only are willing to go all the way through with the big money cases, right? Yeah. And so for the average case and the average person and individual, frankly, I don't think most of the time a big law firm, if anything, will get you a smaller settlement because you have paralegals handling it. You have attorneys who don't spend a ton of time on your case. And more than anything, too, is I always hate that approach, trying to diverge cases early on based upon what the predicted value is, because a lot of times we don't know what the value of the case is until we get closer to when the clients are done with their treatment. One of the cases that comes to mind is a case we got done about a year ago now. And in that case, the client had some injuries involved. And, one of the things that she had going on, she had all this neck and back pain and other things, but she did have this nagging knee pain. It took her a couple months to finally get in with an orthopedic surgeon who looked at her knee and said, oh, it's not just nagging knee pain, it's clicking and stuff. It's actually, you need a full knee replacement. Well, then she had to do a knee replacement surgery, and it ended up being a couple $100,000 for that, all this type of thing. By the end of the case, her case, if we looked at it as if, oh yeah, she has nagging knee pain and that's the end of it, and didn't wait for her to go all the way through the orthopedic surgeon process, case was maybe worth 20, 30,000.
Yeah, I think they offered
I think at one time before the surgery they offered 50 was the max.
Oh.
And I think at the end we got 740,000. Mm-hmm. because we waited for the meds to go all the way through and waited for the client to get their opinions, that just to make sure that she needed one way or another any additional treatment. And we didn't expect it to be a surgical need. The client didn't expect it to, but the surgeon found a medical necessity for it and said you needed to go through with the surgery. But that's a scenario where if a big law firm looked at that case early on, would have said, this case is not worth more than X amount of dollars. We're not going to sign an attorney to it. We're not going to let her go forward with months and months of treatment and wait to get this orthopedic surgeon because we don't think it's going to turn out to anything. And for this client, it turned into a whole different scenario and different case just because we were patient with it, and B, we handled it the way it should have been handled, as if it was a big case, even though at the time it looked like a small one. Mm-hmm. And then it turned into a big one. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing. You never know when a small case can turn into a big one. And if you handle them all as if they're always going to be small cases, you're going to miss those opportunities. And the clients miss on those opportunities.
Yeah, which I feel like we should just be mentioned. Like, once people think that their treatment's wrapped up, like if she had just stopped with her neck and back pain, mm-hmm. and then she went in like not even that long after she'd finished her neck and back pain issues and realized that her knee was hurting more often than it wasn't since the collision. If she just stopped and we had settled with the insurance company, then she would have never been able to recover that. And that's what I think people don't understand, is that once you sign that settlement agreement, you can't go back.
Right.
There's no going back. There's no reopening a claim or a new claim with the insurance company for the same incident. You're just done.
We can talk about this in so many different examples, but the point still remains that a big law firm doesn't mean first of all, it just doesn't mean a bigger settlement. That's just a myth. And for the majority of cases, in fact, it's usually the opposite. Your case is probably worth more than what the big law firm would tell you if they just handled it with more detail and more care. But, they just don't have their time or resources dedicated to the small cases, in their eyes, small cases, to do that. And then, going along with this too, even if you hire a big law firm, it's not like your case is going off to that attorney you see up on the billboards or on TV, because there are some big law firms that have very good attorneys. So, don't get me wrong, there are some great attorneys in the state that work for...
Even the ones who have the billboards have amazing attorneys working.
They do,
with them.
Yeah. The big law
firms, never
firms,
hear their names, but they have really good attorneys working there.
Yeah, there are very good attorneys that work at some very big law firms, but they only work on a very small number of cases. So if you hire those firms thinking you're going to get to one of those
top dogs,
one of those attorneys and stuff, it's a numbers game that's not realistic. It's so filtered, the cases that get to them, that it's not for the majority of clients in your benefit, in our opinion anyway. And at some point later on in this podcast, I'll bring in some other attorneys and we'll talk about all of this, some small law, some big law attorneys, we'll go through all of this. But that's one of the myths we hear about all the time, is big law firms must be better, and that's why they're bigger, or they must be, must mean bigger settlements, all those type of things. It's just, usually it's a more indicative of the approach the law firm is taking to their cases. Is it a quantity, them trying to get a certain number of cases in the door per month and get a certain number of cases out the door per month? Or is it a quality approach where you're trying to maximize each case's value, regardless of how many you get in the door or out the door? It doesn't matter. You're trying to maximize the case itself. I think that's the difference, is a lot of law firms handle it based upon the quantity, and they basically settle cases when the law firm needs them to, not when the case is ready to. All right. Well, that is myth number 4. I think that covers a lot of the more
common myths.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Common myths that we hear about from clients or from other attorneys, adjusters, or whoever else.
Friends and family sometimes, honestly, who don't know necessarily the ins and outs of what we do every day.
Right. Even friends and family. Exactly. That when we hear about, this stigma of the ambulance chaser, the attorney's office, or trying to even say that you're a personal injury attorney, is sometimes, it does have that stigma associated with it. And to be clear, the insurance companies who are legitimately fighting against claims of fraud and, people making injuries up and all that type of thing, I hate that as much as they do. Right. It makes it very difficult, or makes it a lot harder for us to recover for the clients who are really injured, the people who are committing those type of fraud and everything else. But
that's a good point. That does happen more often than not.
Yeah, and it makes our job harder, like all those people doing that. And that's why, we don't represent anyone we don't believe in.
Right.
Like I would never take a person on as a client like that. I wouldn't do it. Ethically, I wouldn't, and morally, I wouldn't.
Right. And there's been plenty of clients that we have fired because we found out that they lied to us.
Yes. So, that's one of them. I guess a fifth myth that we can kind of add in on here as a bonus type thing is that it's easy to game the insurance company and commit fraud. Number one, it's not easy to do it. And number two, I hate you just as much as they do. Don't do that. That's not what this is about. This is about legitimately injured people who, because of the perception of, and I think insurance companies purposely blow up those the small minority of people who are committing fraud. They make it seem like it's a vast number, and that's why all these and premiums are going up and all sorts. They try to make it sound like it's such a high number to make basically everyone sound like they're committing fraud. Filing a personal injury claim doesn't automatically make you a bad person or mean you're committing fraud. But the insurance company
have every right to make a claim for injuries and damages that you sustained because of somebody else's actions.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, beyond personal injury. I feel like a lot of people are scared even just beyond just hire an attorney for anything.
Yeah. And exactly. You should have just protect your family, your legal rights.
Legal rights.
Yeah. Protect yourself.
No matter what your beliefs are, your socioeconomic status, your education level, no matter your gender, your whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. You deserve to have access to those basic rights that have come along by the legal system that's been built up since the beginning of America.
Right.
And beyond. I mean, things we took from before America even became, right? So,
and I guess that's the biggest distinction is we're here to protect your rights that she was saying have been developed over the number of years. We're not here to help you take advantage of
any system.
We're protecting the fairness of your rights, not take advantage of it. So, either way, neither here nor there.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe on the next one, or at least on another episode. But for today, I think we covered a lot of the most common myths, and there's a whole bunch more we can talk about. But the bottom line is there are a lot of things that people think about when they hire a law firm or a personal injury attorney, or before they even hire them, that are just not true.
And that hold them back. Right. And so if you have a question about, or some lingering doubts or limiting beliefs on these things, it is always free to give us a call and just talk through it. Give us a call, give anyone else a call. It doesn't matter. Just talk to someone who knows. If you have a doubt of, does it make sense to pursue this or not? Call an attorney who specializes in whatever area of law it is and ask them that question. Most attorneys in most areas of law will give you free consultations, or at least talk to someone in their staff who will tell you if it makes sense to pursue it or not. Then at least you know. So again, our office, along those same lines, offers free consultations for any type of these cases or any type of personal injury case. So feel free to reach out to us. And there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Yeah. All right. Well, perfect. That'll do it for today. Thank you very much, Mackenzie, for being on the episode number 2 today of the Now What podcast. I appreciate your time today, and this will do it.
Thanks.
If you're in Colorado and dealing with an accident or injury, reach out to us at Travis Legal Offices for your free consultation. You don't have to face this alone. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and remember, when life hits hard, you hit back.